and that's looking nice. Okay. Hey there, I'm your host Zoe, and this is part 20 of our inventory series. In today's video, we'll be creating the first part of the equipment functionality for our character. So with that said, let's begin. Let's start by going to the content drawer, our inventory system folder, and inside here, we want to create a new actor component, which is going to act as our character equipment. So for that, we'll right click on the inventory component and do create child class. We'll call it BPC underscore character equipment. And let's save that. Now we want to add this to our player character as well. So let's go to content, third person, blueprints, third person character. And inside here, then what we'll do is we'll add in our character equipment component. Let's take it and do print inventory. And just like that, we want to get our keyboard tree event. And on pressed, we'll be able to see what's in there. Let's also click on the component. And as we can see, the inventory size is 21. Now we want this to be whatever our equipment size is. Now, in my case, that's 6. So I'll change it to 6 and let's compile and save that. Next, let's go back into the inventory system folder and open up the UI folder. And in here, we want to create a new widget called the equipment slot. So for that, let's right click, create a new widget called WB underscore equipment slot. Let's open that up. We'll begin by adding a size box to this. Again, the size width override and height override up to you. I'll stick to the inventory size slot, so 60 by 60, and on fill screen we can do desired. So that's the starting point for us. Next, we want to add a button, so let's add that in. For the button, we'll go to style, and on normal padding and pressed padding, we want to set this to be 0, 0, and for the background color, we'll set this to be transparent. Like so. We can also name the button underscore equipment slot. So that's that. Next, well, let's add a border like so, and we'll fill this out. Padding will be 0. We'll call it border underscore outer. And for the color, I have something saved in here, so I'll take it. Let's see what this turns out to be. Something like that. Okay. Next, then what we'll do is I want to grab an overlay. Like so. And in this overlay, we are going to add the image that's going to be empty and the image when the slot is occupied. So let's also, for the padding, just do 2. We get this nice little frame around. And in the overlay, we'll add in the 2 images. So image 1 and copy paste that in. So let's fill that out. Let's fill that out and let's name them. So image gonna be called img underscore empty. And we have img underscore full or equipped. Next, let's head over to the event graph, and inside here, we want to add few variables. Let's begin by adding the item ID, which is going to be of type name, and we want this to be instance editable and exposed on spawn. And again, these values just let us edit the variable in this blueprint on the outside of it. So let's add another one called the equipment category, and this needs to be of type E underscore equipment category enum made, again, instance editable and exposed on spawn. Okay. Next, we'll add in another one called empty slot, and this needs to be a texture 2D, instance editable, and that's all we got to do for that. Okay. Another thing we could do is let's add an event dispatcher called on slot selected. And in here, we just want to return that category. So E underscore equipment category. And this we shall call equipment category. And there we have it. Let's then compile and save that. So in here, we want the event construct. And what I want to do is I want to grab the item ID, get a get row, and plug in our data table in there. We'll break this open and we want to check if the image in here is equal to the non-image. So I have that non-symbol, like so. And we'll collapse that. And if that's the case, if it equals to that empty symbol, we'll grab a branch. If it's true, we want to set this to be empty. On row not found, we'll create that. So custom event set empty slot. We can then call this event in here. So event graph set empty slot untrue. And this itself, we want to grab the image empty, set brush from texture to whatever the empty slot is, like so. And we then want to grab the, again, empty image, set visibility to be visible, and we want to hide our image full. So just copy the visibility and do collapsed. We don't want it to take up any space in the UI. So that's that, and this logic gets executed here. So let's connect it on row not found in there. And if it's false, if it has been found, well then we want the image full. Oops, wrong guy. Copy, paste. And we'll do set brush from texture again. And the texture is gonna come from here. Like so. This goes to false and everyone's happy. Okay. Next then we just wanna reverse engineer what we did here. So what we'll do is this shall be collapsed and this shall be visible. And that's all for here. So let's compile and save that. Our next function is going to be called check item slot. Now in here, we want two inputs. We want the item ID, which is going to be of type name. And we want another one called the equipment category. And this needs to be, of course, our e_equipment category enum. So again, we'll do get row for the information, plug in our data table. We'll break that open and check if the equipment category, we want the enum equals is equal to the equipment category that we have proposed in there, like so. And let's just align this nicely. And if that's the case, we shall return whatever this tends to be. We can call it success or the return value. Let's call it success, true or false. And just like that, let's compile and save. For our next function, let's go to the functions tab, go on override and do on drop. And before we start this, we want to go to the variables tab, add a new variable called character equipment. And for the type, we'll make it BPC_ character equipment. And let's make it instance editable and exposed on spawn. Once we've done that, from the operation, we'll do cast to DDO. And this is the drag and drop operation we made in a previous episode. And we're using this because we have access to the inventory and we have access to the index, get index. And because we have that, we can do get item slots. And if we can get item slots, we can get a copy, not the gate, get a copy. And we have the index right there. So this will get us the item we want. Let's break it open. And from the item ID, what we want to do is let's get the check item slot. And by the way, this can be a pure function. So item ID goes in there and the equipment category goes in there. And this will go into a branch and the execution pin will come from here. So if that's the case, if it's false, we'll do a print string saying this doesn't go there, full stop. And that's on false, and then we shall return with a true in here. We always want to return true. So With that, we want to set the item ID on true, whatever this item ID is. And we'll grab our character equipment and do add to new slot. Again, item ID will come from our item ID here, like so. What we can also do is we want the item quantity, which will come from here, and the index, which will come from get index. It's gonna have to come from, let's promote it to a variable index and make it instance editable and expose and spawn. Okay, so that's that. For this next part, we need a function that we currently don't have. So let's go to the content drawer, open up our inventory component, and in here, let's create a new function called remove equipped item. Inside here, then, what we want to do is we want the index. So let's add in a index, which is going to be of type integer. And let's also add in the equipment category, which is going to be E, equipment category. So once we have that, we can get the item slots, get a copy, not the gate again, get a copy, get a copy of the index, and we'll break that open and do get item data. We want to break this guy open, get the equipment category, and check if this is equal to, oops, again, equal enum to two things. It's either equal to the weapons or the equipment, so apparel. And I'll hide all that. So either those, and we'll do or boolean, because either or works. And we'll do an and boolean as well. And the other condition is that the equipment category from here, from the item data, let's take it again. Oh, not the item category. We want to get the equipment category. So break that open. Equipment category has to equal. Close that. It has to equal to the equipment category, which is gonna come from here. So get equipment category. It's just a lot. I might be all over the place, so I do apologize for that. And we'll go into the and boolean in here, and then let's grab a branch. Connect this like so. Let's clean up a few things. So from here, this itself doesn't need to have the item quantity. That goes fine. And then if that's the case, we'll get the slots and do set array element, or even what we can do is just add to new slot. It gets the array for us. Index, of course, needs to be the index here. So get index one here. The item quantity is going to be 0. The item is 0. That's fine. And we just want to update the inventory after everything has happened. So that's that. Let's then compile and save. Back inside of our equipment slot then, once we have that function created, what we'll do is we want access to this inventory component, which is going to come from the drag and drop operation. In here, we just want to remove equipped item. And the index is going to be our index from here. I'm going to clean all of this up in a second. Right now it's a mess. And for the equipment category, we just get the equipment category in here. That's looking good. Okay. And after that, we want to do a refresh equipment slot. We don't have that. So in here, let's create a custom event, refresh equipment slot, which we can put in here. And on drop, we'll do refresh equipment slot, like so. And at the very end, we'll return true. So give me a second and I'm going to clean all of this up. Okay, so here we are again. Everything is just a little bit more cleaned up and easier to read. Okay, let's compile and save that. Next, in the UI section, let's go ahead and open up our wardrobe UI. And in here, on the overlay, let's add in a horizontal box. Then inside it, we want 2 vertical boxes. Let's add them in. Click on your horizontal box, fill it out. Click on your vertical boxes, fill them out as well. Fill, and we get something like that. Okay. So for this one, we'll do box underscore left for the name, and we'll do box underscore right. And like so, we want to then grab our equipment slots and add them in. So in here, I'll add in 4 for head, torso, hands, and legs. So we'll just name them slot underscore head. And by the way, if you're seeing this, all you got to do is click on that and that. So let's just select all of them. There we go. And if you select all of them, actually, we can go to padding and say 10. And this will look very nice in the actual thing. So we'll wait for that. So slot head will have slot underscore torso. We'll have slot underscore hands and slot underscore legs. And on the other side, we'll do the same. So I'll just copy one of those, paste it in, select both, and we'll do horizontal alignment right. And there we go. So this is our slot underscore melee and slot underscore ranged. Next, we want to go ahead and click on each individual slot. And if we scroll down, or maybe it's up here for you, the index is important. So we have index 0, we have index 1, 2, 3, and so on. Now the index matches the order that the items were added to our player character. So 4, and then we have 5. So click on your first slot. For the item ID, we'll do head underscore 00, and this represents the format in our data table. The equipment category is going to be head. Empty slot, we'll add in our head. And in the character equipment, that doesn't matter. That's fine. And then we'll just do the same here. So we had what? Torso underscore 00, torso, torso. And you just want to go ahead and do this for each individual item. Once we're done, let's compile and save that. And if we play the game, we should see this actually on our screens. So let's hit play, press tab, and there we go. Now our, what's this? Our hands or our torso is not working. Let's see why that is. So for the torso, what I'm thinking is that maybe this is wrong in the data table. So let's see that. Item data, data table. Oops, wrong guy. Data table. And torso underscore 00. Ah, we've set this to be nothing. So that's my bad. Torso, boom. And now if we play again, this should match. And that's looking nice. Okay. Next, let's go ahead and set up the equip functionality. So for that, we'll go into the inventory system, into our inventory component. And in here, then let's create a new function called equip player character. Okay. In here, what I want to do is I want to do a set skeletal mesh asset, and we'll do context sensitive off, and we'll do the function, the node. So this guy. Let's make the context go back on, and the target will plug in there. The new mesh will plug in there. And we also want the materials. So let's add in a new input called materials. And for this, I'll do material instance. There we go. And you want this to be an array if you have multiple textures or materials. Right. So first of all, the target I want to rename to be a skeletal component. New mesh is new mesh. That's fine. We want to see is valid. If this is valid, we'll set a new skeletal mesh, which will come from the new mesh. Then we'll do a for each loop. So for every single material that we do have, figure out that. We shall do a, what's this? Set material from here. Set material. Like that. Let's also just align it. Easy to read and keeping the code clean. Then the array element goes in here and the array index goes in there. And that's us done. So let's compile and save that. For our next function, then we'll call this equip item. In here, we want to get the item slots, and we'll do for each loop. For each loop, I want to break this open. I want the item ID, so get a row. Plug in your data table. We can hide the quantity. We don't need that. We'll break this open. And we'll break up the skeletal mesh info. So I guess break that. There we go. And from here, I have access to the skeletal mesh. So we can do equip player character. Skeletal mesh goes in. Skeletal mesh goes in new mesh. The static mesh doesn't exist, and the materials goes in materials. And why can't we? What is this type? Interface. And oh, this is material instance. So material interface. My mistake. Change that. Compile and save. And this will give us an error in here because they don't match. So let's just go like that and do a for each loop. That should fix it. And there we go. That's fine. Compile and save. And let's set it back into equip item. This matches. And then once we've done that, I want to get the hero, which is our node from our function library. And we want to get the head of our player character. Head. We'll do get torso. We'll do, what else is there? Hands. Get legs. Get melee weapon. Get ranged weapon. Now, all of these need to match the equipment widget order. So we had the head, the torso, hands, and so on. And we'll make an array out of all of this. Let's add them in. Like so. And then we'll do promote to a variable, calling it player skeletal parts. Let's call it. We want to set this after the row has been found. Click on that, hide anything unnecessary, connect that in there, and the skeletal component is going to get a copy of the array index here. And that's going to be our skeletal component then. And that looks okay to me. So let's organize this and compile and save. Next, let's go back into the UI and open up the equipment slot. In here, we want to create a new function called equip item. And all we do is we get the character, where do we have this? Components, character equipment, and do equip item. And let's compile and save. Next, inside of the event graph, what I want to do is, with the refresh equipment slot, we'll grab a sequence node, so S and left mouse. And on 0, we'll have it go in there like it did. And then on 1, we'll have equip item function we just made. Let's compile and save. Next, let's head back into our wardrobe UI. And in the event graph, let's create a new function called set equipment. In here, we'll get the player character. We'll do get component by class. We'll get the character equipment. We'll do is valid, like so. We'll grab the equipment slots. Do we have that? I don't think so. So on the event graph, I want to grab the head, torso, hands, legs, melee, and ranged. Right click, align left, and we'll just make an array from all of this. Can I can, okay. And one more. And we'll just plug this on pre-construct. Set promote variable equipment slots. Goes in there. And we're golden for now. Let's go back to set equipment. We now have the equipment slots. And we'll do a for each loop. I want to then do a refresh equipment slot. But before we do that, I want to set item ID. Also clean this up. And this goes in there, and the new item ID will come from this value here. So we'll get the item slots. Again, get a copy of this index here, whatever that might be. Break it open. Whoops, not a branch. Break it open. Item ID goes there, and we can hide the quantity since we don't really need it. And there we have it. That's that. So let's compile and save. So with everything we did so far, this would only equip the player character at the moment. We also want to equip the wardrobe character. Now we'll do that in the next episode. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed. And if you did, leave a like. And as always, happy developing.